Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Millspaw, and today in my hot seat, I have something very intriguing and someone I want to introduce you to, partially because I'm very selfish and I want to learn the ins and outs of what he does, but I figured why not share it with the rest of you. His name is Brian T. Collins, and he does this energy healing through sound, through music, which is so unique and different. If you're like me and you've done healing, you've done energy work, but nothing with actual music, you will be super intrigued by today's interview. So, welcome to my hot seat, Mr. Brian. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing, Carrie? And
Uh,
thank you for having me on.
Absolutely, absolutely. Anytime I can get someone on camera, I'm a happy girl. So, I'm going to dive right in because Brian's very unique and different, and I want you to hear the back end of a person's story. I think it's super important to understand how they got to where they are today. And everyone's got a story. So, Brian, how did you get these gifts? Kind of go, the more I learn about you, the more questions I have. So hopefully we won't keep this too long. But I want to know how you discovered this gift. I believe we all are kind of brought to the planet with gifts, and some of us discover them later in life. So tell us your backstory.
Okay, mine started very young. I was born in Scotland, and so I grew up in Glasgow. And my family used to take me out to the country and stuff every weekend, and so spent a lot of time in nature. But what was also very interesting was whereas a lot of kids had monkey bars to play with as a school set and stuff like that for play, my playpen was ancient old broken down castles and ancient sites, standing stone sites. So
Wow.
that was something that really, it was really inherently in there. And it was my uncle Bob. Used to take me to ancient sites, and he said, "Remember these places because this is your origins, Brian." And I didn't know about it at the time, but it turns out that the Collins family, we came from the ancient Irish Holly Druids, which were deeply connected around the ancient standing stones. So I kind of had that in my blood. And then actually, when I was 5 years old, I was in a car accident. I was struck by a car, and it gave me an ability called clairaudience, which is the ability to hear subtle tones, not necessarily associated with normal human hearing range, which is around 20 hertz to 20,000 hertz. So I'm not going to say I can hear like the dogs, but what it did do was it gave me an extra sensitive ability to be able to hear into people's field. And I used to be able to sense if something was up with someone, if they were having an inner problem of sorts. And so I kind of developed that over the years. And then my family came to Canada in the 1980s, and right away I quickly gravitated towards music. And I was a natural. I was one of those gifted people who could just pick up an instrument and play
You were Beethoven?
it with the hearing.
Yes.
Yeah, so it was just very strange. I just naturally gravitated towards music, and then I thought that's what I was supposed to do in life. I became a professional musician. I was hired by the music industry. I was one of the guys who would be flown in to big gigs to replace a band member live on stage. So I was kind of in the limelight, but kind of unseen, so to speak, behind the scenes. And then I realized that there was something inherent with music that wasn't quite sitting right with me. And we all enjoy music as an entertainment system, but with my ability, I found that there was a much more deeper sensation of tone away from the current music pitch that we tune music to. It was actually going back to my times way back in Scotland in the 1980s. I actually went back on a bicycle trip in 1987, and I was around some ancient standing stones when I heard a series of pings, kind of frequencies. And these frequencies, they weren't actually coming from these ancient stones, but it was kind of like how you can get or hear a frequency deep within your own brain.
Mm-hmm.
I can't remember the term for that, but specifically is I tried to hum into a tape recorder and match the pitch. And after a few tries, I got it bang on. And when I came back to Canada, it was my girlfriend's father at the time. He used to service church organs. And he put this tape through an oscilloscope. And it turned out to be a specific pitch called 432. So since 1988, I started promoting of using 432 as a concert pitch rather than 440, which is where music is tuned today. Really? So it's quite interesting because now as across the world globally is it's now common. A lot of people are now tuning their music to 432, and they're getting a more heart-based experience of the sensation of tone when they lower it slightly.
Oh my God, I'm so fascinated. I don't even know which part of what you just said wasn't even, I'm still stuck on accident at age 5, plane and castles. How fascinating is your story?
Yeah, I believe that each one of us, we're given our life story as a means for us to not only evolve ourselves, but then transform ourselves and then use that as inspiration to help others. Exactly. So I have lived a very unique life, and I've spent a lot of that time also researching why I had gifts. Is there scientific proof of these phenomenon? You look into new research. I don't want to skip too far ahead, but you look into, they're now changing the way we're even dealing with science. Mm-hmm. Because the old way that we're dealing with science came out of the old Enlightenment schools that were funded by the nobility to fund their story at the time. So largely we're still dealing with a hangover from the days of Newton in science of reductionism, whereas mm-hmm. we should be looking at everything in creation and reality from a holistic approach. Yeah. We're all intertwined and interconnected because energy fields, they're constantly transforming from one state to another. Yes, absolutely. I love that we're so much more evolved than we were 10 years ago, even when it comes to energy. So good. So it's interesting that this happened at 5 years. When did you realize, did you put the connection of, you had this car accident? I mean, 5 is pretty young. Not all of us have much memory around 5. That it was coincided. How did you know you didn't have this gift before the accident? I mean, was there like this awakening, like, oh my gosh, why can I hear stuff I didn't normally hear? Because I want to dwell on that for just a minute, because I have a friend that also went through a stroke and came out of the stroke with multiple gifts: clairvoyant, clairaudio. Is it clairaudience? Is that how you say it? Okay. Yes. Yeah. So that's where you're hearing stuff. So she was hearing stuff, seeing things, and it's just interesting. It's like you have this near-death experience of like, go back. We'll give you more tools and more fun things to play with. Go back. It's just intriguing to me. So did you have like kind of a, oh my gosh, this has to be from the accident? It's interesting you mentioned that, because I've actually had 4 near-death experiences. That car accident was one of them. Okay. And each time it's like I've gotten a new upgrade. Mm-hmm. The last one was in 2013 when I was in Ireland. I got struck by lightning. And you could write a book about just this stuff. Good Lord. Unbelievable. And yeah, so that it gave me a different perception on time, because again, I believe that what's going on with some of these phenomena is these are types of events that happen to accelerate your evolution and your mm-hmm. spiritual path. And for an example, Dr. Rupert Sheldrake is well known for his research on the morphic field. And his work suggests that we're not locked into this Darwinian slow evolution of competitiveness of the species, and mm-hmm. so that's how it works. But really, actually, evolution is actually going in spurts and mutations according to the behavior in the resonant field of a species. So it seems to be that when the environmental conditions happen, we are actually forced into an acceleration of evolution. And I believe that sometimes these gifts that people receive from accidents and other means is just that. It's actually what we're doing is we've been stretched past our spiritual comfort zone and pushed into a dynamic where we're now accelerating in an evolutionary path.
Makes sense. Interesting. Yeah, I think it's nice to say up level. You just gave another new level to, or you got rebooted with new stuff. It's just fun. It's fun to explore and be open-minded about it, because things we can't explain. Not everything has scientific or rational thought behind it. You just kind of have to have some faith and trust into what you can't see in the supernatural, and that's what's fun about what we get to do every day. So let's talk about the music a little bit. I want to point out more than anything is Brian can heal so much. And I know the word heal is used loosely a lot of the times. It's emotional healing, physical healing. He's done lots of, he's got case studies you can find on YouTube, things that he's done and helped people with physical ailments. More than anything, though, I think what is the most intriguing part, and this is something that a lot of us have challenges, is we feel at times that we're blocked. And I know that's, again, another buzzword that's used a lot, where we feel like, gosh, am I running into a energetic brick wall? Why can't this happen for me? Whether it's finding the love of your life, losing the weight, or your physical ailments, or maybe it's money, financial. Kind of take us down that journey of how that works. And I've been blessed enough to hear Brian's music and understand that it's, there's a process to this, but kind of share how that works, if you can.
Okay, so thank you so much, Carrie. And it's going to be tough to put a broad brushstroke on this and an umbrella. But if I was to really address this issue of blocks, is we must always look to the belief system. It's going to be the foundation cornerstone from which we are actually building a reality. I could start talking about the quanta field of why space-time generates consciousness, but it's not going to be understood. But specifically is our consciousness is kind of having a double life, so to speak. Mm-hmm. It's a split type of experience. So how can I kind of prove what I'm saying? Okay, well, for the viewers, I'd like you to actually just try something out here. I want you to, in your own mind, say the word red apple using your own voice, but say internally in your own mind. So just say the word red apple inside. Okay, you did that, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. So my question to you is, you can hear your own voice inside you in saying red apple.
Yes.
Okay. All right. So what's the consciousness that's observing you, hearing you, and saying the word red apple?
Is it your subconscious, or? I didn't know I was going to get tested today.
Well, what that is that's pure consciousness.
Yeah. Okay.
And it's pure consciousness is always in an observer role, and it's always present in the present moment. But you see, what we do is we create ourselves an identity through the ego and the split mind. Mm-hmm. And what we end up doing is we therefore define that voice that says red apple as us.
Yeah.
And therefore what we end up doing is we build up an entire character, an identity around that inner voice. And then we fall asleep and we believe that that inner voice is us.
Yeah.
And therefore, everything that inner voice does, we let it define us.
You're right. That self-talk can be very dangerous.
Mm-hmm. So in that is, this is all a big, long way of being able to broadly answer that question, is specifically what ends up happening is we therefore start to identify with hidden and subconscious beliefs, because we fell asleep when we were observing ourselves as us. Mm-hmm. That's kind of existential in a kind of way of looking at it. But specifically is, if you sit outside, again, as the observer consciousness, you're able to actually start to consciously listen to what's going on that's triggering off belief systems. So what I've found is that language is a form of spelling. It's spells. We're creating word spells when we're using language. So if we're looking into overcoming a block, we have to go much deeper than what language provides. And I found that the way to do that is with sound, because our DNA and our cells react to sound.
Yes.
And so therefore I found that if you tune sound a certain way out of the way it's normally tuned as an entertainment system, you're able to actually release a lot at the cellular level. And cells hold memories. Water. And what are we made of? We're mostly made of water.
Right.
So a lot of that kind of thing is what's happening is it's generating a type of field that our belief system feeds off of.
Right.
If I'm,
No, that makes sense.
That makes sense.
It does.
Right. So therefore, when we align ourselves to, very powerful spells of language, such as I can't, I'll try.
I suck. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. What ends up happening is it becomes a dynamic, self-serving prophecy in our own conscious mind. And because we've fallen asleep thinking that identity is us, then we take that on as truth at face value.
I love it. You talked about music and how it changes us. I understand our cells almost come to life and hear it. Is it Dr. Kiyomoto? I'm trying to remember what his name is. Japanese. Emoto. I can never get it right. But he does such a beautiful scientific study of what our water in our body looks like to music. Looks like pretty little snowflakes with positivity and things of that nature. So we've seen the science behind that. And those of you that are still in the dark about that, you might want to look it up. It's super fascinating. I think he even did a study where, wasn't it like heavy acid rock metal and like super heavy music where it was more negative, dark tones, where the water looked like sludge. And obviously anything negative or negative words, it looks like murky, nasty water versus the crystalline, beautiful, unique snowflake, beautiful crystals was classical music, for example, I think he used as well. So fascinating to me. So fascinating. So that's like, again, just backing up what Brian is saying with more scientific research. This isn't just something that we're pulling out of the thin air for fun. When you play your music, I think it's interesting that, because I didn't know what the 4-3-2 meant. That's like, sure I can sing and I had piano lessons, but God help us all. I'm just not gifted there. Not like you. I didn't know what that meant. So it helps to understand what you meant by the pitch of where we start at. What happens to our chakras? I mean, when you're playing that, tell us what you're experiencing when you're working with a client and you're using your music. And in fact, Brian has it by him. The musical instrument that he uses, and I can't even think of what it's called right now, but what do you call it?
It's a modified body tambura, and this one's unique, so I've actually named it. It's called a Theracord. Theracord,
that's right. I love that. So can you show us? Is it by you?
Yeah. Let's see. Just grab it. So this is it's based off of a monochord.
Yes.
Which is an instrument that allegedly Pythagoras used to figure out sound ratios.
It's like a harp. If people can't see that, it's got strings.
Yeah.
Right? Okay.
Yeah. So there's about 300 subharmonics per string times 36 strings.
Wow. Okay.
So this instrument, again, it's a modified body tambura. It's designed to lay on the body.
Really?
That's why it's concave. And the sound transfers into your body so that you get a deeper transfer of the vibration And what that does is it releases muscular tension where trauma is stored in the body.
So that's what you've done. Okay. Again, another light bulb moment for Carrie. When you're working with people physically, you're actually laying that on them
Yeah,
with physical ailments.
It depends on what condition somebody has. If somebody, say, for example, has had a spinal damage, is use it right directly on the spine. And more often than not, it's laid on the front of the body. And then you're mentioning about chakras.
Yeah.
This instantly aligns all your chakras. And when you're having a session in person or online, sometimes what will happen is you'll get like an itchy face or itchy nose because your energy meridians are all lining up.
Perfect. I was curious about that.
In that, because nobody else is talking about this, but I'll talk about it, is the Earth is surrounded by magnetic fields. We have a north and south pole. Now, there's other fields that's crisscrossing the Earth, commonly publicly known as ley lines, if that's a term that people have heard. But really, they're called telluric currents. And what they do is that they crisscross the Earth with these types of currents that can affect biology, and it can create geopathic stress. So it used to be that ancient cultures used to settle in one place for a while before they would migrate and move on. But with today's busyness, we're traveling in cars, planes, trains, and such. So what we're actually doing is we're crisscrossing these fields so fast that we're never allowing our body the time to acclimatize to the natural geopathic fields that's good for our biology.
Wow.
So what this instrument does is it takes all those little pieces of shards that's all broken in our aura and in our field and basically glues Humpty Dumpty back together.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's why most people will get an itchy nose or an itchy face, after having a session.
I love that. Interesting. All the stuff we can't see, but we sure can feel it.
Yeah. I mean, that's just one element. The other thing is the tuning that I use, and that is very specific. There's a lot of science and data behind it, and it's based off of my research into ancient sites. But specifically, the harmonics will work regardless where you are in the world. So most of my clients are actually remotely online, and so they can heal right from the comfort of their own home.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that makes all the difference in the world, for sure. So once you play it, it's got a lot of reasoning behind it, obviously. Like you said, it aligns our chakras. It kind of puts our energetic field back together again. What else? What other purposes do you use it for? And I kind of want to hear some stories of past successes too, so we can better put ourselves in the picture, basically.
Sure. Yeah. Thanks for asking that. It's a good question. Originally, I designed the instrument when I was, because I'm known for creating celestial meditation music in 432. And I have to rewind to that for a little bit to answer this question.
No worries.
So when I was creating albums and putting that out, I noticed that my fan base were sending me testimonials that I'd never heard before, that the music was helping them in so many ways. And there was even some people who, for an example, with autistic children, were actually searching out music and were giving me feedback that it was working. So I didn't know at the time when I was, putting out this meditation music, just how many different challenges that it was actually helping. So then I decided, okay, well, I have to take this to the next level. So how it kind of came about of the evolution was I was taking everybody's astrology, numerology, and then working with their fields that way, and then therefore creating a very complex process to be able to write down their actual life path music. And so what I was doing was I was composing a person's life track. But the thing is, it was taking me like 2 weeks to do.
I'm sure.
So I was just like, well, this just with time leverage, I can't do this.
Yeah.
So then the next evolution was, I had to just kind of suck it up, as you say, and just like, okay, I've got to take it to the next level and create an instrument that can do this. So then I looked at what was available. I saw, and then it was interesting, was I actually had a kind of a divine dream when I was around a set of standing stones. Mm-hmm. And I was shown this image of this sound machine. And it was tied into the earth's fields, and it was all this kind of stuff. So I was like, Eureka, I've got to do that. So I started working that out, and I thought, well, it's probably way out of my budget right now to get this thing built. So what else is available? And I saw that there was common sound instruments out there, and I saw the body tambour, and I thought, well, you know what I'll do is I'll see if I can get a manufacturer to redesign this instrument, because there's a very key element I need the viewers to understand, is that although music can emotionally heal us at a certain capacity, and it brings us great joy and upliftment, is the entertainment pitches that we use in order for it to play in all 12 keys in music. They had to take natural tone and squeeze it tight so that it became a closed system known as the circle of fifths. But tone that really helps with healing the body, it wants to spiral. Look at nature. We imitate nature. Everything in nature spirals. Right. You see the wind and the leaves, the water vortexes in the ocean. So that's what we're looking for in terms of healing. We're looking for things that open up spirals, because the body's going to recognize geometry that spirals.
Right.
So I had to figure out a way of, because once you take a string to tension, it becomes a straight line, which is unnatural.
Right.
So the way to do it was have the manufacturer actually perfectly make it imperfect. So this actually became a beta model, and this is what I'm saying is the beta model has far exceeded what I designed it to do. And so when I started testing it and getting permission with clients, one of the first tests was with a gentleman who had severe MS. And the video is actually it's online, so he had MS for 17 years, and he was paralyzed for almost 2 years. And in 2 sessions, he had mobility of his arms, and his legs started coming back. So that's just one. Others, there was parents of a 6-year-old girl. She'd been having seizures since birth, and they were at their wits' end. Had tried just about everything under the sun, and then they had heard about me. And then I came over, and I kind of, with my intuitive ability again, is I was able to hear there was something not right in her field. It had something to do with her being exposed to an electric shock or something that had changed something in her electrons. I know this sounds...
there was something messed up in her wiring. That's all you have to say. It's all good.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, exactly. So so I gave her a session, and she saw improvement right away. So after the second session or so, the parents reported that she was seizure free. So that's another one. There's so many. There's so many. I've also worked with animals, and healing in animals is amazing because there's no human ego involved.
Yeah, that makes sense. There's no resistance.
Yeah, and just recently, last week, I worked with a horse to release past trauma. And what's very interesting in almost all of clients and animals is the natural biological state to release trauma is we shake. So
Interesting.
During a session is a client will normally have like a micro trauma release. So it'll usually be their fingers will start to just pulse, kind of like that. And what that's doing is it's releasing, trauma out of the body. Also, rapid eye movement is very common as well. And a lot of clients have reported, recalling things from childhood, repressed memory. Some who are energy sensitives, can report, seeing color, vivid. Some people past life. So it's a total different broad spectrum.
Oh, I'm sure.
But what's very interesting is about what the instrument does is it allows you to consciously listen to where the blocks are in your body. And that's important because once it comes up in a facilitation, is then we can actually address, okay, well, if it's, say, for an example, in the throat, well, it's around communication.
Right.
And or the knees would be around foundation, or that kind of thing. So different things also reside and live in the body and in the nervous system. And what the instrument allows you to do is to consciously listen to where it is, because once it's conscious, there's an old ancient maxim: to know a thing dissolves its power.
Yeah.
So once it's brought up into your conscious, you can therefore work on releasing it.
Beautiful. Share some more stories, success stories. I know you've worked around money blocks too, because I don't know of anybody that doesn't have a bad money belief or some kind of belief of not enough or other things that show up too. Because Brian doesn't just work with physical ailments. There's emotional and other things going on too that work, obviously with this process. And it's not that he just has this magic instrument that you can go buy on Amazon, because that's not possible, I'm sure.
No, this is unique. There's only one.
It's just very unique. There's only one Brian too, so it's all good. Talk a little bit about that, because you're using the music. It's not just the music that's working. There's more to it as well. How do you play into this, aside from being the player of the Clairaudience? There's more that you're doing. It's a step-by-step process. I just want to make sure our audience knows that you don't just show up or play a little tune or send them a download of 10 seconds of music and everybody's magically healed. It's a process. So kind of take us through that a little bit with some other people that you've worked with.
Yeah, sure. As you know, there's no such thing as a magic bullet.
Yeah.
If there is, run away.
Right.
Right. So specifically, it's a process. So it's a process of being able to facilitate what's going on. So let me explain my process. With my gift, I hear a different harmonic field out of the instrument for every single person. So it reacts differently to different people. So I've been able to kind of build a kind of a roadmap with the frequency of what's going on in somebody's body, not just like you were saying the physical, but emotionally. And emotion in the emotion body is where that's where we're stemming a lot of these blocks, the energy blockages that creates us to self-serving beliefs of lack and limitation.
Right.
So it shows up for each person differently according to the harmonic field that I'm hearing coming out of the instrument. And I've also kind of used that as almost, it's almost in a way of kind of like frequency remote viewing.
Okay.
We've all heard about remote viewing, is that ability to sit with a kind of a psychic gift or whatever, to build a composite picture around locating something. With the frequency is my ability is it's all frequency based. So when somebody has a block like around money, it's really what I do is I facilitate about looking at the symbolic archetypes around what put that implant in the first place. Was mom and dad having a fight over money when they were young?
Right.
Was the what belief closed down somebody and then created the subconscious block, so to speak. And so what this process is custom made. It's facilitated to the specific person. And what we do is a little bit of a kind of a forensic investigation into what the symbolic archetype is that they're holding onto that needs released. Once we find that, we set the intention both together. So we're in a co-creative field together. That's a very important thing. It's not, as you say, just like, creating a piece of soundtrack. Here, just listen to this and read that.
All better.
It'll be all better.
That's right.
We actually go through a forensic analysis together in a co-creative, and I'm going to say the word shamanic experience, because I'm also working multidimensionally. I'm working with all different types of tool sets that I'm being able to draw upon to work somebody through and past the blocks, and past the spells of language that sustain those blocks. So it is a bit of a process. I found that usually a 30-day window is a good time. Why 30 days? Well, how powerful is the moon?
Yeah, I love my moon. It's going to be full tomorrow.
Yeah, and there's eclipse as well, right? So
and it's a super moon, blood moon, and a blue moon. Yeah, it's a big one tomorrow.
So I just want to throw this out to the audience: is look at the power of the moon to pull the tides.
Yeah.
Up so many feet.
Right. It's beautiful.
Right? Well, what are we made of?
Water.
Right. So there's so much behind this, but it's also generating towards moon cycles as well. I found that it takes a moon cycle for a lot of these to clear out. And then if you work during another moon cycle, then it anchors it down. So I space out, programs with 30 days, and I go twice a week. Again, is just like if you're on a tennis court, is you get into a rhythm of serving back and forth, and that creates a phenomenon known as oscillation. Right? Oscillation is the secret cause behind most effects, and it's often misinterpreted as vibration. One is the cause, one is the effect. So because I don't want to go too far into that, I might lose some people, but specifically is that's why I space it out twice a week, is because what we're doing is we're creating a wave.
Okay. It's
kind of how if you push, if you time it right, even just a little flick of water in a bathtub using your fingers,
right,
get the entire whole bathtub moving of water. It's all about timing, frequency, and oscillation.
Got it. So when you work with a client, kind of give us the time frame. You said twice a week for 30 days, or kind of give us a picture of what that looks like. Is it twice a week for 30 days or 3 months or however long?
Yeah, twice a week for 30 days. And again, it depends on the severity of what it is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you can't put a Band-Aid on what needs stitching.
Right.
So if something is, say, severe, then, I can work in 3-month blocks as well. Because just like moon cycles, there's also timings that have to do with 30 days, 60 days, 90 days. Right. So there's that in mind as well. So sessions are 90 minutes. The actual Theracord session itself is exactly 30 minutes. Okay. The rest of the session is a pre and post consultation to build up that roadmap of the symbolic archetypes of where we need to look at that map and then pull those archetypes out.
That makes perfect sense. Very crystal clear. If you think about it, and something's been challenging you for most of your life, 30 days is still pretty dang fast to get some help and relief and shifting into a better existence. 30, 60, 90 days even is still fast, in my opinion, when you think about, especially the guy that you talked about with MS. I did see that story on YouTube. The joy on that guy's face of I can move, it just speaks volumes of what this can do. So, you know, it's still kind of a miracle if you think about it, even though it's not split seconds. It's 30 days isn't very long. You know, if you think about how long you've been carrying this burden around, whatever that is. You know, everyone's got their own story. You do sometimes see results quick though, don't you? I mean, have you had some kind of faster results with certain people at times?
Yeah, I've had, I almost am resistant to say it, but I'm going to say it anyway. I've seen miracles. I've seen literally biblical like miracles happen right before my eyes. I'm not going to say that specifically it's just the instrument. It's all of everything working as a unison. It's myself working with the intent. It's the multidimensional types of tool sets I'm using. It's and what it's transferring with the instrument, and it's also the client. And that's the whole thing, is somebody has to be also open to it as well. If somebody is so resistant, then that's going to have a play. But here's a really interesting kind of thing. I've been working with someone recently who's very science-minded. Yeah. And due to confidentiality, I can't mention who it is and what the details is. But specifically, as there was someone who's very skeptical, and so this person has got limited mobility. Right after the first session, they started walking straighter. But yet in their mind, it's like, I don't see a difference. Right? And this is an interesting factor, that this is, again, coming out of how a belief system can override even healing.
Yes, so sad.
Was after a few sessions, I candidly was watching this person walk, and they were walking almost completely fine. And then as soon as they saw me, they went back into walking with a limp. So there's this part of working with somebody that if somebody is wanting to truly transform, they have to be committed not just to the process, but also committed to letting go and detaching from any beliefs that may continue that block. Right. So in that, yes, I have seen miracles in one session, and I've seen all types of things. So my success rate, I'm gonna have to say, conservatively, that my success rate is about 90%. Why 100%? Why not 100? Because the 5%, I see that it's actually part of their life path to go through. And then the other 5% are usually looky-loos.
I'm just curious.
I'm just curious. That's all. Right. But I can say that everyone, 100% of those who have come on board and have done the work to show up and be committed to transforming, they've had an excellent time of an experience through the program. So I'm so honored, and to be able to see that. It just, to me, I could start welling up.
Yeah, I can feel I get goosebumps all the way up and down me just from feeling that. Yeah. Absolutely. Well, it's our modern day times. I grew up, raised in a Christian home where we did hear the stories of Jesus healing people. And even as a little girl, I thought, what a beautiful gift. I would love to go and save the world. You in your own mind, everybody wants to help people at some point. But to see someone suffering and knowing there's a solution, you don't have to go through this. You don't have to choose the hard path. And so many of us, again, past life stuff, or like you said, karmic stuff showing up, childhood beliefs, these core beliefs that are so strong and so rooted. We think this is just, I'm just cursed. We tell ourselves these stupid stories. I'm just supposed to have a hard life. This is just who I am. I'm not lucky like these people over here. And it's just sad to me that we live these lies and truly believe that are truth when we don't have to choose this path. We've got people like Brian, and there's others out there too that have their own unique gifts that are giving back to the planet and choosing to have, give people a better human experience. I just truly believe we're only here for a short time. Might as well make it the most fun ever. And, Brian gets to help you just clear out that crud that's keeping you from having the best existence ever on this planet. It's just so exciting for me that what you do just blows my mind. And it's so exciting. I could talk about it forever, but I don't want to bore the crap out of everyone. So they're like, all right, Carrie, enough. Enough. But it's exciting. It's super exciting. So I love that you've taken this gift, just to kind of recap for our audience, from age 5. You've had other near-death experiences. I mean, I hope you're writing a book about this. Getting, struck by lightning. I'm sure there's a big fun story behind that. But, discovering how to heal people through the pitch of sound and having your own unique instrument to do this. How exciting, how fun. So tell people, what is the best way to connect with you? Because I know just hearing this step-by-step process is going to intrigue many people watching it. Like, how do you work with us, Brian? How do we connect? What do we do? Where do we go from here? So kind of tell us where your website is, how to find you, what's the best way to connect with you?
I have a few websites regarding the music and stuff, but regarding this specific thing is they can go to soundhealingvibes.com.
Perfect.
And they'll find out information about programs and also, a little bit what I do. And there's some interesting things there as well. And also is emotions is the main thing to work with because everything else is an effect of an effect.
Mm-hmm.
So if we're not working on our emotional field and then settling it out, is one thing I didn't mention. I think that's very important to mention is that there's new evidence, scientific evidence and studies showing that ancestral wounding can actually be passed down in epigenetics. There was a study done on Jewish survivors of the Holocaust that's now proved this. And so it's now coming out a new light with systems called family constellation systems to be able to facilitate ways to be able to help with family systems. I found, again, is using the Theracord is a very powerful way to release ancestral wounding. So how does that play out? Well, have you ever noticed that we can have our public persona and our identity and we do so well in life, then when we go home, we turn into a different person, and so does the rest of our family members?
Yes, I can attest to that. And I go back home to Michigan, I'm like, oh, back into that old self again. Interesting.
Because what happens is we, as offspring from our parents, we hold agency over that larger genetic field. So if something hasn't actually balanced in the resonant field that was passed down, then therefore it can play out in family systems.
Interesting. So are you telling me we're carrying the burden of our ancestors around?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
And part of my hunt around ancient sites and doing a lot of research over the years was I was like Thor with a hammer. I was going after the exact origin of trauma on planet Earth. Wow. And I've been able to track it down to cataclysm, going back to a series of comet strikes. And so now, how does that lock into what we're in the modern world? Well, somebody, for an example, may never be satisfied with what they do, whether it's their job, whether it's their relationship, whether it's the meal they just had. They're always looking at somebody else's meal. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Right?
I know quite a few of those.
Well, I've been able to track that what that is that's actually a trauma origin of migration from these comet strikes.
Wow.
So, so by being able to facilitate the ancestral woundings and then release the ancestral woundings using the TheraCord, and then a shamanic process by, calling in somebody's ancestors, is it actually settles that out. And here's the most kind of miraculous, interesting thing. If, say, for an example, somebody's having a estranged fight with a family member and they haven't talked to in years, and they facilitate this and they move through it, all of a sudden in the field, that relationship changes. So I've seen things like that. I've even done it for myself and my own family.
Wow. Intriguing.
So it's quite something. So yes, Sound Healing Vibes is the website, and I have an emotional clearing program that deals with a lot of these issues, and also money blocks as well. So and it's custom tailored to the client. So
emotional healing is going to heal a money block. That's what it really is. The money block is all tied to a belief or a core belief or emotional stuff, and even karmic, like you said, or ancestral. Carrying that burden around. And it don't have to. I'm not trying to shed light on a problem without giving you the solution. That's the whole fun part. At least it's not this gloom and doom conversation of, well, that's just life. You got to just suffer through it. There's a solution on the back end, which is fun, which Brian provides. So you prefer to work with people one-on-one? Is it easier to do more, just dive right in privately with a client?
I like that. I can also do group sessions as well. So that's the two ways. With one-on-one, obviously we can go into a deep dive.
Yeah.
So there's that as well. So there's a number of one-on-ones that I do, and I'm also doing some other joint ventures as well. I've got one that's coming up with a colleague of mine, Holly Eden Morrow, working with chakras on actually clearing out chakras as well. So that's a good one.
Perfect.
And there's some other things in the works as well.
I love it. Love it. Very awesome. Well, I can't thank you enough for your time today. I'm blown away. I love it when our paths cross with dynamic people like yourself, and I get to learn something else new, and I get to shine a light on you and help the planet a little bit better. Just that ripple effect, like you described in the bathtub. Just what kind of push can I make today to create that ripple effect where people are more aware of what they can be, do, have on this planet? It's just pretty amazing. So I want to thank Brian for his time. Go to soundhealingvibes.com. We'll put the link all over this video, so it's easy to find. You can connect with Brian through his website, kind of take a look. Go find him on YouTube, but also kind of watch the videos we've described. He's got lots of stuff up there as well. Just again, to kind of see for yourself, what he does out there for people. It's just amazing, just amazing. So I hope this has helped so many people discover a whole new way of living and being through Brian's work. So big hugs to you. Thank you for being, available today for this interview.
I'm so grateful, and thank you so much for having me on, Carrie.
Do you have any final thoughts before I let you go that you want to give our audience?
Believe in yourself. Really, all of us, I really want to just say this. We are all alive because we came from a time of cataclysm. So our ancestors survived, but we are holding things and we don't have to.
Yeah.
We don't have to. We're now in an age where information is so freely available, but we need the wisdom to discern through that knowledge and information. And so really encapsulate a life where you're living in the heart.
Absolutely.
And you can't go wrong if you're living in the heart.
Absolutely. I even have a reminder right here, a little sign that says love, because that's that's the combat to fear and anything else, the best antidote to what's going wrong. Just a reminder for myself. And my love quartz, I've got all my energy stuff here at my desk. It's who I am. Big hugs, big love to all of you guys. Thank you again, Brian, for this wonderful interview. And go find him on social media, go find him on his website, and connect, because you don't have to live this burden type of life ever again. You have choice. So thank you so much, guys. We'll see you again on another episode with Carrie Mills Paw.